Back again, team. I have my fourth game from New South Wales GT. This time, finally, against my man Lockie. We haven't played in like 4 years, I reckon. But we've never grudged each other just doing this thing where we're like, eventually, we often have tournaments where we're just like neck and neck throughout the whole thing. Eventually that will end up in us getting paired, and it's happened today, or not today. It happened the other weekend, so we were both pretty happy with that. Unfortunately, he brought this dull bloody gunline dwarven holds list, but you know, it's Lockie, so we can forgive him that. What he's brought is basically 2 big units of Kingsguard, an Engineer, a big unit of Greybeards, and then shooting. So he's just got the 2 small units of handgunners, but he's got 2 grudge busters. He's got 2 units of 2 copters. He's got an organ gun and he's got a cannon. So really, this is the sort of list that sits there, shoots you, and then hopes that you, with the scraps that are left, it can beat you in combat, which is pretty typical dwarves, really. Moving on to the actual game. I was back on the same board that I played round 2 on. The objective was hold the center. I can't remember what the deployment was. Maybe it was counter thrust, in fact. So as you can see, we've ended up with a bit of a funky system here. Lockie got the first turn, so I can't remember exactly what I had down at the time, but essentially after he dropped everything, what he's done is he's gone Copters here, Kingsguard here, a Grudgebuster here in front of his... Oh, not in your back, you bastard. Don't show me again, mate. So sorry. Oh! Alright. I probably won't edit that out, let's be honest. So, Grudgebuster in front of his big unit of Greybeards here. And then he's got the 2 handgunners, Copters in front of Organ Gun, Engineer, and Cannon behind. He's got his Kingsguard, his Buster, and then his little Vengeance Seeker out here. So, with Hold the Center, it's actually, this game's kind of funny because Lockie and I basically had the same plan. I was like, I don't think that I can get the objective and rush his sort of bunker over here. So to rush over here, I'd have to give up the objective, and then I think that, like most times when I face dwarves, I won't have the killing power left to actually get through and get the points over there. So pretty much what I was going to the game hoping was, I'll secure the objective, and I will get these 2 big units there, and I will try and mitigate the amount of damage that his shooting can do to me. The way that I set up for my first turn was a lot of it basically just trying to get cover, like either cover or mitigate his, like if he doesn't have range for it, that sort of thing. So I think these chariots were already down or something, but there wasn't much way that I could protect them. I basically just decided, look, if he wants to focus on those chariots, I'm alright with that. I don't mind too much. Centaurs are sort of trying to stop him from... Because they have a massive charge threat. So even if he's up sort of, you know, the line of the hill, he's pretty chargeable by these Centaurs. But they're getting hard cover behind this hill, behind this wall. And then I've used my forest to give my chariot soft cover. I actually probably should have ignored the fact that the +2 to cast is so good and used that to give more cover. So I probably could have dropped that so it's giving cover to both my chariots, like the unit and the single guy. And it could have been further up, particularly if I deployed further up, it could have been further up. And I could have made it in a more annoying position for his shooting for the duration of the game. Because where I've set it up here, it's sort of only the first turn that it's going to matter, because like, obviously I do get my wizards in, which is good, and I get them there from turn 1. But, you know, if I'm pushing forward, this forest is going to be left behind by the main forces pretty quickly. Yeah, so, and by the, yeah, I didn't really finish the thought, but Lockie also had the same idea in this game where he was like, this is from us talking afterwards, where he was like, I'm happy to give you the objective, give you these units here, and then just kill everything with shooting and win the game. So we're going into this game looking at it the exact same way. We had the exact same plan, but we'll see how it actually went and who was right to have this plan and who was wrong. So this is, I think, after my turn 1 by the looks of it, because I've done all my moving and stuff. He basically put all of the shooting that he could into my Razortusk Chariot, and it was not successful. So by the looks of it, he did 2 or 3 wounds to it. And this, I think, is after the Chariots charged his Grudge Buster and it fled behind the Kingsguard. He doesn't have a BSB, but everyone passed their tests because it's Leadership 9, so it's usually going to be all good. And I've just brought him back, I think, out of Organ Gun range, still getting cover, except for anything, obviously, that flies down to the side, which these guys might be able to, but I don't think he would. Yeah, that's basically all I'm doing here. I'm not advancing too aggressively with my main 3 blocks here, and that's because, one, I sort of want to keep him honest with his shooting getting around me, but also because I'm so much faster than him, I don't really have a need to push up too far and let him charge me. That's basically it. Where are we going to go next? Is it the same picture? No, it's not a great one, but... So this is, I guess, after his next round of shooting, he killed 2 chariots, which wasn't ideal. He killed a Minotaur. That's about it. He killed some Gargoyles over here, but they passed their panic, so they were all sweet and happy. Yeah, so what I will do from here, basically, is my Minotaur is going to go into these Greybeards. My Gargoyles are going to chaff the Kingsguard from the countercharge. If that wasn't possible, I did have the Gargoyles to get in a position to chaff, and I did have the Mongrels to just push up, because I actually don't mind the Mongrels fighting these Kingsguard. Striking first, probably rerolling to hit, with my Strength 4 banner activated. I'd be AP 3, so I wouldn't even get an armor save. I expect that I actually, at the very least, I do enough wounds that I'm steadfast there, and holding him up, but I think that there's a pretty good chance that I just win that, because I've got a lot more bodies and I get to strike first. I did have a little bit of a sneaky play. So I could have either charged the Razortusk at the Grudge Buster, and I needed, I think, like a 9 or a 10, forcing it to turn to me, which means that it wouldn't be able to do its countercharge onto my Minotaurs for the second round of this combat. Or I could just charge a pretty easy charge into these Copters. And I pretty much decided I'm not actually that scared of this Grudge Buster, particularly because I'm not worried about the amount of damage these Greybeards are going to do. So even if he does send them in, I will have a buff up on the Minotaurs unless something goes horribly wrong. And I expect to just win there anyway, basically, even if he does get the charge off. So particularly because it was so long, I didn't want to risk my risk just failing. I wanted to get these Copters instead. I did declare as well, I'm pretty sure it was a 17, maybe a 16, into his Organ Gun with my 1 remaining Chariot, which would have been pretty significant, I think, if he failed it, so it didn't end up helping, but killing the most dangerous shooting thing on the board, I guess maybe I don't kill it. I'd at least take a round of shooting away from him. I don't know. Anyway, that would have been nice, basically, if I had gotten that one. So this is how that ended up. The Gargoyles did pass their... In fact, they might have not even needed a march to get in front of these boys, because Fly 9, I think that might have been enough, but whatever it was, they did manage to get in front. And yeah, basically everything that I just said happened, got in. The Centaurs just moved over, basically, to stop this Vengeance Seeker trying to peek round down here and sort of get into their flank. And then I just pushed up fairly aggressively with the Razors and the Mongrels. Okay, so this is after Lockie's next round of shooting and like after my combats and stuff. I'll go back to the other one because it'll be a little bit easier. Essentially, through 2 rounds, I killed all of these Greybeards. So they didn't flee, I killed them to a man. The Razortusk broke the Copters, and then I think I restrained with him. I must have, because of his position there. Yeah, I must have restrained with him. I don't exactly know what I was trying to... Oh, okay, so what I was doing with him, same size as the Grudge Buster, and I didn't want that Grudge Buster charging my bunker. So essentially, by restraining with him, I could block the line of sight to my bunker, give up the Razortusk Chariot, he'll get charged in the flank, but not too worried about that. And yeah, Lockie just charged the Gargoyles and killed them. I will point out, actually, while I'm here, I don't really want to fight the Kingsguard while they're on the wall. So what I should have done with my chaff is place them so that he had to charge in such a way that he couldn't then pivot or reform back onto the wall. The way that I placed them here effectively allowed him to charge me, kill me, and then retain the wall bonus. So that was a pretty silly mistake. But it's not something that I even thought about until afterwards when it became apparent. So essentially, after killing those Greybeards, my Minotaurs just turned around. They had a couple of choices. They were blocked. They could only turn like 90 degrees. So because they're a square, they could turn to face sort of the northwest, the south, the southeast, or stay facing north, because his Grudge Buster basically reformed so that anything else would get me within an inch. That was the reason why I didn't have that many options here, which I think actually did stop me from facing down this way. So it meant that I wouldn't be able to get a charge into his handgunners or anything over there, which is a pretty significant play, particularly because I couldn't reform, and like it's, my turn coming next, I couldn't reform and charge. This is, I think, after I actually charged the Grudge Buster as well. But if we look here, maybe, I don't know. Maybe I couldn't, maybe I just chose not to run into that sort of blending gunfire, basically. I don't know. Particularly because he could just flee and then flee again and just shoot the crap out of me and chaff me with the copter. I essentially decided from here my plan was I'm going to kill this Grudge Buster. I'm going to make sure I win this objective, and I'm just going to hide. Minotaurs are going to try and hide behind this impassable. We're just going to try and get out of here with as much as we can. Lockie's shooting actually killed my entire bunker. That's including his miners we brought on here. I had a pretty important march check that I failed. So I did have my BSB in range, but I failed the march check. So no, I think I didn't, because I think he was... It doesn't matter that much, but I don't think he was actually in range. It was either just out or his position actually isn't there. Maybe he's meant to be there. I don't know. But they failed the test, and then they couldn't get very far away, which put them in a bit of a pickle about where they were going to be able to go, particularly because this gargoyle movement was complicated, given that if I needed the chaff, I needed... so I had sort of two options here. They could either be my bunker, I could run over to them and join them, and that's sweet, but in order to get out of line of sight of the miners, I would need to pass the march check. Knowing that essentially I would need to move the gargoyles into a position, I basically either needed to move them where I could get to them with a march from my Soothsayers, or I needed to use them as chaff, and I needed to basically make that decision before I took the march test, because I can't... if I took the march test, I'd have to move the Soothsayers. The gargoyles were too far away at that point. So to get them in range, I needed to... Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I needed to move the gargoyles first. And yeah, essentially they had to chaff there, but because of the way I had to chaff and everything, and the fact that my casters were still in the way, they were sort of in the middle of this tray here, they didn't have great spots to move to. So, like, I couldn't even stay in cover or anything because these guys would be a problem. It wasn't a great time. I don't think I could fit in this little zone over here either. And, of course, he could always just not charge me and then unload 20 throwing weapon shots into me. So I'm not loving their position at the moment, and I'm not overly loving the points on the board and how it's looking like it's gonna end up. But I do have the objective 1, so that's decent. I did make a mistake here as well. So I charged. He got the wall. So the wall was a big problem for those Kingsguard because I don't really want my Razortusk fighting them when they're hitting on 5s. And then I looked at it, and I had a charge with the Razortusk and the Mongrels, and the Mongrels were going to make it on, I think, a 7. The Razortusk were, not auto-win, but, a 4 on Swift Stride or something. And I think I declared both because I was like, if those Mongrels fail their Primal, when I'm hitting on 5s, maybe it's going to be a problem. If I get 2 of those Razortusks in, it's probably enough to turn the tide. And win me the combat, even if the Mongrels do fail their test and all that. But I don't like the idea of the Razortusk fighting them just one-on-one, and the Mongrels had basically a 50-50 charge because it was a 7. So I should have thought a little bit further forward to be like, what if the Mongrels don't make the charge? I think I did, but I was just like, let's take the risk and see what happens. But in retrospect, it's definitely a mistake in the game where what I should have done with these Mongrels is maybe even just not charge them and just march them up and be like, cool, I'm right in front of you, you can charge me and my spears get better, or next turn you can't get away and I'm charging you then. But this ends up being a mistake and I end up losing that combat as well. So yeah, the Razors get butchered and they run through. I end up turning my Minotaurs after their combat that way. I think this is where I had the choice of, do I go after the gun line or do I just try and mop up these points? And pretty much my decision was, look, he's going to get a full turn of shooting, of pumping into these Minotaurs. I don't think I even got a buff up. And with a full turn of shooting at them, and a stand and shoot and stuff, I don't think they're going to have enough bodies left to fight the rest of the army over there and be effectual. So I was like, I'm going to turn them that way. I'm going to make sure I can deal with these Kingsguard, and then I'm just going to try and conserve points from there because I can't engage this gun line. This might be the last picture, to be honest. No. All right. So this is after one more round of his shooting. He's killed a couple of Minotaurs. I have actually, he fled with his Kingsguard from a Mongrel charge following, and I then charged him off the board with my my Minotaurs. My general died at some point. The Druidism guy, one of them died. I don't know which one this is, but one of them is still alive and hanging out with the Razortusk who rallied, basically just to absorb shots. The Centaurs are now just going, we're going to get out of here. We don't like this. And the Gargoyle is just here being a little bit annoying. I think this is the last photo, though. No? Okay. This will be the last photo for sure. So this is basically all I'm doing here. He killed my general. He killed enough Razortusk that I ran. He unloaded a decent bit of shooting into the Minotaurs, and I have a BSB on 1 wound left because he got hit by the cannon. I've got a champion on 2 wounds left, and I've got a standard bearer on 2 wounds left because the champion I think took 1 in the combat. And then the Mongrels are just getting out of here. And then on the last turn of the game, when I bailed my BSB out and hid him behind this impassable terrain, I made it so that the cannon couldn't see him, and so that by bailing him out and leaving him outside the unit, these handgunners or whatever basically couldn't come around and see him. So, or maybe even that's just their final position. And I did that where cannon can't see, organ gun can't see, but leaving him in there to absorb shots if these guys shoot at them or whatever. my BSB has a 2-up ward against flaming, so he's not so worried about the like the Grudge Busters or the what are they, the Copter guys. He's also not so worried about the Wormslayer rocket. I was hoping, but then last turn, like, he shoots off his Wormslayer rocket, needing a 4 or a 5 or something, hits the unit, puts it on the BSB, wounds him, and I fail my 2-up ward, and I was like, shit. So, killed the BSB. The Minotaurs lived on half. I think these Razortusks ran. I'm pretty sure the Centaurs and the Mongrels were alive. And I didn't get that much from him. So if we go back to the lists... there we are. I got the Greybeards, a unit of Kingsguard, and then, because they didn't run down that Copter, I'm pretty sure it's... Oh, and I got a Grudge Buster. So what's that? 1135 plus 305 is 1440. And he got, all of this except 450, except half of them, and except the Centaurs. So it was a pretty heavy loss on points, unfortunately. But because I had the objective, the end score was 12-8 to Lockie. So going back here, basically, as I said, I think I should have used my forest as cover better. Particularly because I could have deployed my characters further up. So that I could have sent this forest even further up as well. I think that's pretty important in the matchup, and it's not something I think about that much. So I haven't used the Seat of the Dark Forest. Actually, you know what? I've used it quite a bit. But I guess not so much in a list that is this blocky. So, like, when I was using it with my chariot characters, after one turn, the monsters are all over the board. The chariots are probably they've done their one advance and they're still in there. But I haven't really had a list where it would actually be quite handy to just go, you know what, there is a forest here now after I've seen your deployment, so deal with that. I'm obviously, I lost the game. Lockie and I had the same plan in terms of how it was going to go, and we both thought we'd get a win from it. I think around about here, I was feeling pretty happy. I was like, yep, plan's working. He's going to kill a few things. I'm going to win the objective. I'm going to kill a few things. Close on points, and I'll win the objective. That's sweet. But after he had a mad round of shooting, maybe here when he killed all those Minotaurs, they just sort of turned. There was a point on turn 4 or whatever where his shooting just went off. I don't think all that luckily, really, but just in terms of he was now all in range. He didn't roll a 6 for the organ gun, so we didn't have -1 to hit on it. His copters could start targeting my characters because I'd lost my bunker. There was just sort of a turn at about halfway through the game where it was this is gone from I'm feeling okay to I'm feeling awful. But going back to the start, I think potentially using the forest better would be helpful. So having that in a position where it blocks more of his stuff, that'd be good. But I don't know that I could actually even get it into a position where it overly changes the outcome here. Because I think, if we're honest with ourselves, there was going to be a couple of rounds of shooting here where I had to be out exposed, and Lockie would be able to pinpoint all of his shooting at a few valuable units. So I was trying to mitigate that, but then at that point where I'm out in the center, it's look, I'm going to get shot, and it's just how well do you roll. And I think you don't need to roll above average to absolutely, take chunks out of this Beast Herd army. Maybe that's the same thing for everyone. I mean, Organ Gun's AP3, the guns are AP2, so having armor wouldn't have helped that much. But it was devastating, and I think if I'm playing the game aggressively trying to win, there's almost no way to avoid that situation coming up. In another deployment, potentially, like if Lockie had dropped everything like this, same plan, I obviously could have avoided a whole big, well, I mean, not the fast stuff, obviously, but I could have popped the Centaurs somewhere where they're just trying to zone those guys out. I could have been way more over to the left, and I could have just avoided or made him like move up and march and stuff. And if I can go a few turns where he's out of range and not able to do much, where I'm sitting in this forest scoring the objective, and obviously with my better charge distance able to charge out if he gets close, maybe that changes things. But different deployment type, Lockie may well have deployed differently. I do like his plan and his strategy here with after he'd known where a few key things that I had were going to be down. Yeah, I think maybe it even just would have been better though if after that turn 1 where I didn't take much damage, so when we're here, maybe I should have just gone, cool, I know where you are now, I've got super fast Centaurs who can just go like pivot or reform 9 inches over to the left, let's just back these chariots away, let's just get out of the range of death of this organ gun. And if I'd placed my forest better and further up, there's a good chance that I could have done that and maintained cover on like the Minotaurs to their flank. And then I probably still would have been able to have the position that I wanted. So I think there's probably ways that I could have done it better. But I also don't think that 8 is an awful result. Like, I mean, looking at it and going like, hey, these are all the things that I could have fixed and mistakes that I made throughout the game, whatever. Assuming that I'm going to make some mistakes in a game is probably fairly reasonable. So I think given that, if I'd played perfectly and if I'd done all the things that I talked about here, maybe I do get the win. But given that I think it's quite a tough matchup, tough sort of deployment type in the matchup, I think 8's pretty reasonable and okay. And I had a great time against Lockie. And, you know, his army just looks amazing, you know. He's really got, I don't know, Smurfs, Blue Man Group, something going on. He got full painting points because, you know, 3 colours are over there. And by spraying the bases, that's basing, apparently. Anyway, it was a really fun game. Because, like Lockie's also a really great guy to play because, you know, he'll take his time in his movement phase and he'll measure some things out and he'll come up with a plan and he'll try things. He won't just sort of like push forward and go like, whatever, I don't care. But then in all the other parts of the game, in like the magic phase, he doesn't have magic obviously, but playing against him when he does have a magic phase, it's the same. His shooting phase, everything else he does, he's very quick and very efficient. It's like, this is what I'm doing, this is how many I'm rolling, here we're going. So he's plays really well in time without losing much in terms of like, you know, movement or careful measuring or anything. So he's playing a good tactical game, but he's also doing everything he needs to do to make sure, like, you know, we're going to play 6 turns, that's good. Particularly when he's playing a dwarf army like this, there's probably a lot of games where it's beneficial to Lockie to only play 4 turns, but the way he plays is very much like, I will make sure that we're going to do that. I'm going to play my good tactical game, and we're still going to get 6 turns, and we're going to have a great time. He was also trying to get me to drink bourbon all day, but I was not ready on day 2. I was not ready to go back. Anyway, that's that. I do have my game 5 still to do, but that one will probably be a little while away because I'm going away this weekend. So unless I record tonight, which I don't think I'm gonna. Yeah, it'll be a while, so deal with that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you for checking in, guys.